Step back, puts up the three, got hit, shot's good, and one! James Harden double team, and a chance for a 4-point play.
Welcome back to the DC Pod. I'm Christian. Alongside me, Dallas diehard Darcy to cover all things NBA. So we got our first taste of the play-in tournament over the past 2 days. Darcy, what did you make of it?
Mixed bag, I think, mate. I think we were able to see what might and could go wrong with the play-in, and also why it's could be such an amazing tool for entertainment. That last game was just off the chain, and I think it's still up for debate whether it's the correct thing to do or not, because, I thought overall it was a mixed bag.
Yeah, no, it's hard to argue with that. I think yesterday was so disappointing. It didn't start off great, obviously, with the Pacers and game in terms of them just really taking control, but we can get into that. But yeah, I think we'll see. These last couple of games, as we know, there's still the Pacers and Washington tomorrow, and then after that, Golden-State-Memphis. So maybe those two games can be entertaining ones and bring back a bit of life to the whole event. Because so far, as you say, it's only been, well, I guess maybe Spurs-Memphis was okay as well. It was better than yeah, exactly. But yeah, hopefully these next two games can be really quality. Otherwise, as you say, it really does open up the discussion for was this a mistake? But we'll tackle that all. So makes sense to start with whatever. It feels like a while ago that this game actually took place, but it was only yesterday. Charlotte, Indiana. So really it was just the Hornets getting blown off the court from the get-go, right? They just couldn't keep up with the pace of Indy. I was really disappointed by Charlotte. I thought they'd put up much more of a fight. It was funny because Biyombo played about 3 minutes and then Borrego realized this isn't going to work, so pulled him, had to play a lot of Zeller. It was just the Pacers got out of the gate really quick, and the Hornets just didn't know what to do. They almost were like, oh, okay, this is what's happening. It's almost like they didn't expect the Pacers to come out with, the energy and the passion. It was like the Hornets were ready to go home. I don't know how you felt.
When you saw that starting lineup, it was interesting because a guy who was a really big key to the start was actually Brissett, my guy.
Your guy.
Because he did look comfortable shooting the ball, and he hit his first open three, and all of a sudden, it seemed like Biyombo didn't have a place because they weren't agile enough to get out to the shooters, and it only took 3 more possessions before Dougie McDermott had lit them up. And we spoke about if one of those guys could go off for Indiana off the bench, whether it was him or Holiday, it was McDermott's night tonight, and it was a really important game from both those two players in the starting lineup. And the starting lineup was where Charlotte went wrong. Make no mistake, like their starters didn't come to play. Rozier he made some nice drives to the basket early, but it just got from bad to worse from him on the outside. But
the
overall rhythm of the game, because LaMelo wasn't hitting his outside shot, didn't look like an outside threat basically the whole game. And besides one ridiculously long three, Devontae Graham couldn't get cooking either. Exactly. So I guess that's their key, kind of weapon on offense. And they were basically blown out of the water by the shooting of Indiana out the gate. So yeah, it was really over before it started, and what really cemented basically a 20-point lead to turn into a 30-point lead and no comeback was, I thought, the play of TJ McConnell. He really controlled the game and basically took advantage of the lackadaisical kind of attitude that Charlotte brought to that matchup.
Yeah, so you've touched on all the points there really with Indy. I think I was also surprised with the fact Brogdon didn't, there was no rust with him. He sort of came back in and he looked pretty solid. I know he was on a minutes limit anyway, but he didn't look like he really had to work too hard to get his baskets. That's for sure. But just from the Charlotte side of things, because we'll touch on the Pacers more previewing their game tomorrow. It was obvious they missed Hayward. It really felt like when things were chaotic and they were like, oh, geez, what's going on here? The Pacers are just, I think the Pacers scored 20 points in the first, 5 minutes of the first quarter. Like it was just an avalanche, and Charlotte needed some veteran leadership there to really, calm things down. It would have been a hometown return from Gordon Hayward being from Indiana himself. But I think the question that it really, raises here is how do they fix their big man spot? Because that's a real issue. Do they do it through free agency? Do they try and make a trade? Because they can play small ball with PJ at the 5 in certain situations, but you just saw, how ineffective. I'm not even sure they tried it for too long against the Pacers. But yeah, Zeller was decent, but I mean, Zeller's not definitely not your long-term option. So when you face a team that has a dominant front court, and all it took was Sabonis being he didn't even have a great offensive game, but you just saw his presence was enormous. He had 20 rebounds. He had 9 assists. Like he was clearly doing enough outside of scoring to impact the game. But yeah, Charlotte just had no answer. Not even someone that could, stay with Sabonis or even make Sabonis work on the other end. Post up, get Sabonis in foul trouble. How good of a defender is Sabonis? I don't know, but the Hornets just don't have anyone that can exploit that or really give him an option for an easy basket. It feels like it's got to be in transition or, they just have to do a pick and roll and settle for an outside jumper or get into the lane. They don't really have an easy basket type player where they can just dump it down. So that's what stood out to me.
We've spoken about how basically every team in the NBA needs that vertical threat. A guy can protect the rim, but on the other end can finish dunks when you've got so many talented point guards in the NBA distributing. Charlotte feel like essentially they need someone who can finish oops. Like they've got, whenever they get Miles Bridges in that situation, he's absolutely lethal. So he's tempting at the 5, but you're going very, very small there. So if they could find someone in that role, that'd be absolutely perfect because they've got the ball handling and the playmaking. It's a crucial part that all the really good teams need. And, it's interesting. Charlotte, that's definitely where they need to go for their front court. They need to make an upgrade, that's for sure. But they also kind of need to decide who they like out of their guards because they've got a plethora of players. Malik Monk, I thought he wasn't brought into the game early enough. I really thought that they probably should have. It's great to get experience for LaMelo Ball, but I think they probably should have gone with their more experienced, better players. I thought they probably should have started Devontae, probably should have brought Malik Monk in nice and early in the game with Rozier, and I felt like I would have felt more comfortable with him. Malcolm Brogdon, he's one of the best guards in the league. He's not quite an all-star, but he's right up there. And to be honest, even he didn't look like he was moving at 100%, fluidity, but yeah, his consistent play really was remarkably better than unfortunately what LaMelo was able to produce.
Yeah, that was disappointing from LaMelo's side of things. You would have liked to see it be a little bit more. And look, there was some expectation that he could, big moment, big time, and he's potentially a guy that you haven't really seen shy away in the past. He sort of always takes on challenges from, whenever you've seen him sort of under pressure and being at a young age and playing professional. He's always sort of been a guy that, feels like has responded well to being in the spotlight. But it was disappointing, really. I think it was just the team mindset.
Look 100%.
Yeah.
He didn't look 100% either.
Exactly. Yeah. How often was he doing like this sort of stuff that you saw, or just playing around with his wrist? Just even, it's the sign of a guy that wasn't, himself and really healthy. So interestingly enough, Rozier and Bridges are both free agents. So I think Terry Rozier is unrestricted, but Miles Bridges is restricted. So interesting what they do in the offseason there. You'd surely think they'd move heaven and earth to make sure they bring back Bridges at least. But I'm really not sure what they do with. Yeah. Okay. So it makes sense to bring them back. So yeah.
100% better than spending money on, what they could have spent money on with Kemba Walker.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So if they can find a way to probably address that big man spot, then they can look to improve. But otherwise, they probably went about as well as we'd thought this season, right?
A disappointing end to a really good season for them.
Yeah.
A really great season. A few injuries, a couple of things go differently, and then they're potentially in one of those top 8 playoff spots. But a lot to be, thinking good about Charlotte's place moving forward.
Yeah, Hayward in and out of the lineup, especially, that obviously didn't help. If he could play just, at least 80% of the games, I'm sure that would have given a little bit more stability to the team. But still, I think a lot of positives to take away, that's for sure. Okay, then the second game of yesterday, Dus, Washington-Boston. What did you take away from that game?
I missed the first quarter and then had a good look through the second and then missed a patch in the third. Went to check my phone and Tatum had scored about 25 points in a row. And just, I don't know. If I felt a bit of gratification, I feel like Tatum probably is deserving of all NBA spot just because of his play during the season, despite Boston's struggles. And it was a big time performance. The best players need to come out to play in these most important games of the season. And I was really questionable about how Boston were going to get over Washington in this game. But when you're able to ride a guy scoring 50 points at an efficient clip, and something that stood out to me was the fact that he got to the basket and drew fouls. He went to the free throw line 15 times. He does get there a bit, but you don't often see that from Tatum. So he made an important point of saying that these matchups from Washington can't guard me. And I guess that really drove everything that Boston were able to do during the game on the back of his easy baskets. They were able to get open threes. Kemba knocked down a few big ones. And I think it was interesting that Washington didn't seem to have the energy or fight to put up with that. But credit to Boston. And I think majorly just credit to Jason Tatum for making sure his team got that win.
Yeah, so as you say, the Wizards just look really tired. I mean, it was obvious that the injury to Beal was hampering him. He tried, but gosh, every basket for him was such a struggle. I thought it was really disappointing from some of the Wizards role players. Like, you got nothing from Bertans, Neto, Hachimura got in foul trouble. So unfortunately, he couldn't contribute much. And then it's a massive issue when you have no one to really throw at Tatum. So I think it was only a matter of time before Tatum decided to just take over that game. He had a bit of a slow start, obviously, in the first and second quarter, but then, third quarter erupted to score over 20 and then continued that in the fourth. And all he needed was help from one other person, and he got that in Kemba. So, him and Kemba combined, I think, for 79 points. So then, all you need is 40 from, the other five guys or six guys, depending on what rotation you're running. And that's all you really needed. I think that the Celtics did a great job to not fall into the trap of playing at the Wizards pace and having it, it be a pickup game. I think Boston really made sure it turned into a half court type game and they were able to just control things at the speed they wanted. So that really played into their hands. And then that obviously meant that Washington had to really work hard for their points. And Westbrook shot the ball poorly. I think the rotation was really weird from the big men. Like, you saw how dominant Robin Lopez was against the Hornets, which we mentioned in the preview up to this game. And he barely played any minutes against 15. Len got 10 minutes, 12 minutes, and that was about 12 minutes too much for me. I hated the Len minutes. I don't know what he contributed. You didn't see a ton of Gafford. I would have liked to see more of him. But the only really thing I remember from Bertans in that game in particular was him flopping on the floor. Sorry about that. Him flopping on the, where he got hit in the neck or something and it was just very soft. Yeah. And he's just lying on the ground. And the Wizards players didn't even stop the possession. They didn't call a timeout. They kept playing. And Beal even hit a three from that. So it was just weird. Soft. And as soon as they made the basket, Bertans just got up from the ground and ran back and played defense. And it's a part of the game that I hate anyway, that the flopping and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, that's the only, it's an issue that's the most memorable part of Bertans' performance in that game. He was god awful.
0 for 7 from 3. Yeah, that's not what we expect from him. He's been shooting 40% for the season, so just not the right kind of game for him.
Yeah.
I find it quite similar to what happened with Charlotte's game. That I would question some of the decisions that the coach made. Like, you outlined the center rotation. Like, why are we starting Alex Len when we've got a decent center in Gafford and a reliable veteran center in Lopez? Both have been starters in previous seasons. Len's been on 4 teams, I think, this year. So for him to see 11 minutes, that's not like the worst thing ever. But then when you look across and he's minus 15 on the plus minus and he's going 2 for 8, this is a center who should be shooting high percentage. He's gone 2 for 8. It's really, not good signs for what Scott Brooks was thinking. Also, Bertans plays 32 minutes off the bench. I don't know why you don't just start him there and put your best lineup out to start the game. He actually came on and he had to guard Tatum in some stretches when Tatum was already Tatum's basically already on fire. So I don't know what you want Bertans to do. He's not a defensive guy. Like, let's just hang Bertans out to dry here and try to guard Tatum who's already got 30 and is cooking. not great for his confidence, but maybe he'll work on his D a little bit more. But also saw some really good minutes from Ish Smith.
I missed that. He was the only good one.
He's been a guy that I've liked for years. He's one of the better backup point guards. He's tough. He's an offensive-minded guy. But, I would like to have seen more minutes for him. I like Royal Neto as well, and I can see why he wanted to find some minutes for him. But Neto, to me, doesn't seem like a starter, especially not next to Westbrook and Beal. Like, that's just a small defensive lineup. And, you might be able to get away with it against some teams, and you might be able to get away with it against Boston on an off night. But just because Tatum's such a tough matchup, I think he needed to go a lot more defensive with his starting lineup. So I think there's some questions to be asked of Scott Brooks in that one. But when it came down to it, Westbrook, he wasn't quite himself that we've seen in the last month or two. He was only able to get 5 assists. He's been averaging like 13. So he shot the ball poorly, which didn't help, wasn't able to make a 3. But, it just looked like a game that he didn't have the energy to basically make play after play, continue to attack the rim, draw the defense. He just seemed a little bit out of gas, which is probably fair enough, given the tear that he's been on, which it's really been amazing. So a disappointing performance from Washington, and probably pretty lucky for Boston to kind of catch Washington on a bad night, But Boston have done enough to be in the playoffs, and it'd be interesting to see, do they stand a chance against Brooklyn? They got Kyrie head to head in a series, their old mate Kyrie. So it'd be interesting. Good for Boston fans, I suppose. We got to a 4-game series out of them. Do you reckon they stand any chance going forward, Boston?
I can't see how they win a game. I think it'll be a sweep. Yeah, I struggle. They're going to need an absurd series from Kemba. And look, you could get it. He could average 30 and potentially help them win a game or win 2. It probably does help that it's in New York, and, Kemba's from Connecticut, so they're returning home. He's not from Connecticut. He's from New York, but he went to Connecticut. So there's a little bit of hometown love for him. I'm sure he'll be pretty happy to head back there for a couple games. But yeah, I struggle to see how they can even get a game. The last thing I'll say from the Washington side is when watching Tatum go off, I was like, man, Troy Brown Jr., you had a wing that you could have thrown at him, but you decided to put him in a trade and send him to Chicago. So all this sort of stuff is obviously interesting. And especially as well, when a guy like Bertans has such a bad game, it makes you think, geez, 75 million for him. Like, wow. That's because he is obviously, when he's on, he's one of the best shooters in the world, but when he's not on, what does he give you?
Mm-hmm. He's a role player who can kind of only do a few things, but yeah, I'm not sure. It's tough when they're not a defensive minded team, and he's got to come out there and make threes, or his performance is a bust. It's really tough.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so Spurs-Memphis was the first game that kicked off today. For me to get
game of runs.
Yeah, to get things started, other than the first quarter, I actually thought the Spurs played really well. They competed hard. DeRozan and Murray obviously couldn't buy a bucket, but they were still trying to, remain involved in the game. DeMar less so, but Murray was trying to do everything outside of scoring the ball to impact the game, rebounding, assists, and I ended up with a triple-double. But with DeMar and Murray, they combined for 9 of 38, so 24% from the field between the two. In a 4-point game, gosh, what if if both of them make a couple more buckets and shoot 35% from the field combined? Like, they probably win that game. They find a way to do it. The Memphis side of things, I've got to give a shout out to my guy, Grayson Allen, for just an unbelievable 5 minutes of action, going 0 of 2 from the field, came on to start the second quarter. In his 5 minutes of play, the Spurs went on a 20-3 run. Jesus. So basically, Memphis relinquished the massive lead they had accumulated in the first quarter. Unless he's unconscious from deep, I can't see Grayson Allen's value at all. I think he literally adds 0. And gosh, that period in particular, when it was a drought for Memphis offensively, I think it goes back to what I was saying after watching that Golden State Memphis, final regular season game. Just dying out for, a Lou Will, Jordan Clarkson type that could just find him a bucket when they struggled, because it felt like outside of, Valanciunas and a bit of Brooks in the fourth, maybe a bit of Morant here and there, they struggled to get any clear looks. They only could really run with about a 6-man rotation today. Bain was the only guy that clocked
Surprising.
up minutes off the bench. Tyus Jones didn't see more than, I think he only played 7 minutes. A couple of other guys. Tillman only played a little bit. Valanciunas nearly played 40. I'm not sure if Brandon Clark was injured, but we didn't see much of him today.
That was bizarre.
So, look, I will admit this. Dillon Brooks has turned into, quite the defensive stopper after, you can arguably say that the game swung completely when he fouled out in the game against Golden State. And then today, holding DeMar to 5 of 21 shooting. Like, gosh, I think at least defensively, I need to start giving him more respect, because it seems as though he really thrives in that role of just being this gritty, in-your-face, physical, hard-nosed defender that's almost like the guy that Memphis used to have back in the day with Tony Allen. So, I think that was really good to see. And it always helps when you have a center that gets 20-20 and basically is able to really dominate down low. So disappointing for the Spurs. I've really felt like they could have stolen that game.
Yeah, it was a good performance. This was the game that we expected. Two teams that are quite offensively challenged, and they basically showed all of their flaws in one game. And, the Spurs, if we look at the Spurs first, I think, you've got to look at DeRozan as the star player on this team. We knew they were going to go to him basically the whole game. He's been really good for them this year. But when it comes to playoffs and playing now scenario, he hasn't been efficient as a scorer. He was good getting to the basket. He gets 10 out of 11 at the free throw line. He doesn't turn it over only twice for the whole game. But you just got to hit more shots.
Yeah.
He's 5 of 21, lots of good looks, lots of mid-range fadeaways.
Tremendous looks.
Over a guy like Dillon Brooks. I think it was the story of the game was him and Brooks in that battle, because Brooks, he's definitely an irritant for sure. He's definitely not the most pleasant guy to watch or definitely to play against. But his constant effort on defense, that's the skill that he's got, is relentless effort, physicality, and just a determination to find a way to stop guys. And for him to be able to stop, the opposite team's best scorer, hold him to 23% shooting. And on the other end, he was able to do what he's been doing for the last month or so, which is score. He scored 24 points today, which is big, without hitting a three-pointer, shot 47%. Didn't turn it over once for Brooks. So that's really exceptional. He used all his 5 fouls, got 7 boards, 3 assists, couple of steals. So Brooks was the story of the game for me. The only other person who hit 10 field goals for Memphis was Valanciunas. And he continued to be just absolutely rock solid. From the jump start of the game, the front line for the Spurs was kind of being abused a little bit inside. Podol ended up fighting hard and having a pretty good game. But Valanciunas looked like a man amongst boys down there. And, he was shooting mid-range jump shot. He was getting offensive rebounds. I think he got 5 of those. So he was, playing that role to a T and looked like the best big man on the floor out there. Something that was interesting was Jaren Jackson Jr. came out early, hit 7 points in the first 5 minutes of the game and looked like he was getting ready for a big one. But he's obviously, not thought of necessarily that highly in the offensive pecking order at the moment. He only ended up the game with 6 shot attempts in over 30 minutes. So, I guess when Val's working, why not keep playing through that? That was the mismatch that they had in this game. But I think Jaren Jackson's going to have to be a really big part for them, definitely in this next game. Ja, definitely a passable performance. Got himself up to 26 and 6 for the game. He hit a couple of threes, which kept the defense honest. That really gave them that lead at the beginning. Ja had a couple of early triples, but something that was a bit of a hole in his game was he went 2 for 6 at the free throw line, including 3 of those were missed in the fourth quarter. So really something that could come to bite Memphis. Then they're obviously not going to be reliably a great scoring team, especially not in the playoffs in clutch situations. So that was the concern we had before. And in this game, the Spurs, even with their awful shooting, were able to hang around. And I do give a lot of credit to Spurs for that, particularly a guy like Rudy Gay. He came out basically bald. He looked like he almost could have handled more minutes because they didn't really have a matchup for him. He was squaring up and shooting over guys basically all game. So I think Rudy Gay still got a little bit left in him. Definitely a bit of a learning curve for the likes of DeJounte and Lonnie Walker because their outside shooting non-existent. 0 for 6 from 3, both of them shooting, 25% or worse from the field. They got some nice looks. DeJounte got a lot of the time, got into the mid-range, got into the elbow position and used his athleticism to elevate, but just wasn't able to knock shots down. So that's got to be the story for the Spurs. They weren't able to hit enough shots with their guards. They probably got enough looks that they wanted. They didn't turn it over too much. It's just a matter of they weren't able to hit enough shots. Memphis, they did a good job defensively, you could say, definitely Brooks in particular, and Valanciunas was solid on the inside, but to me, there's still so many question marks. I didn't really even notice how poor their bench unit was. You're right about that run that the Spurs made. It was Melton, Tillman, Allen, and Jones on the court together. And they're all going minus 12 or worse in less than 10 minutes. So I can't believe Brandon Clark didn't get on. I think he's got to be injured because there's no way, Tillman and such are hitting the floor before him. But and also interesting to note, Justice Winslow supposed to be the blue chip piece that they got in a trade for Iguodala. They don't even think he's good enough to hit the court in a game against the Spurs. So confusion remains with Memphis, and it's great that they get another opportunity to potentially, have a big time game against the Warriors. And I think we'll get into it. I think it is a bit of a danger game for the Warriors, but overall for Memphis, a good win, but only by the skin of their teeth. I think we correctly predicted that one was going to be real close.
Yeah, for sure. I think in the fourth quarter, the last thing I'll sort of touch on with Memphis is they ran a few pick and rolls with Ja, and DeJounte was just constantly going under. And I swear Ja missed about 4 or 5 floaters that are just so makeable. Anyway, they made one adjustment and basically gave the ball to Brooks and basically let him operate in the pick and roll. And he was sort of, because he's a bigger build, he's able to sort of get past you with his left shoulder, and he can finish there around the rim a bit better. And he does have more of a pull up mid-range game than Ja. So that adjustment, was smart enough by Taylor Jenkins to be able to get him some key baskets down the stretch. And then, Ja was able to split it at the line, wasn't he? He was able to go 1 or 2, missed the first one. So everyone was pretty nervous there. And then, made the second one to close it out. So I think the one thing in the off season is probably they do need to address a bench scorer there. I think that's probably a pretty crucial, just someone that can come on and just get you absolute buckets. And then, look, I actually do like Tillman. I think he's good. I'm not sure if Brandon Clark can play a bit of backup minutes, but things do seem to, really get tough for Memphis in the half court when Valanciunas is on the bench. So is there a guy out there that they can pick up in the off season to address that? Because, you're relying so heavily on JV. I'm not sure you can expect him to play, 38 plus minutes every game. It's just
can't ask much more. He's playing his career best.
Yeah.
He's been awesome.
Yeah, definitely. So that's probably the only thing looking forward for Memphis, regardless of if they can, make the playoffs or not. Just a few things they need to tinker with on their bench that can, really upgrade them and make them a bit more of a formidable threat anyway. So that's what probably end things with Spurs and Memphis. Nearly got what you predicted, Dust. We nearly got a Gorgie Jang revenge game. He did have a bit of a stretch there, a couple of minutes where he hit a 3 and was able to get an and 1. And it was like, oh, okay. Because they put on Drew Eubanks for a couple of minutes and he was awful. And then Pop was like, all right, let's put on Gorgie Jang. So nearly got it. You nearly called it.
He can play a little bit. He's not bad for your third string center, Jang. You hit a 3, a little bit of defense. Would have been nice. They've just got so many players, Memphis. They're so deep in the rotation. Like, he actually got a lot of minutes for them, We'll see if Gorgie can hang around, maybe. Spurs, I think, more changes for them. Lots of changes. Like, let's move on from the DeRozan era and really shake up this team. They constantly don't want to do moves. But, when you look at a performance like this, They fought hard. They're playing the right way, and they've got some good guys developing, some good young guys. When you talk about Murray, when you talk about Kendall Johnson, Jakob's still quite young. And Vassell was okay in his couple of minutes as well. But yeah, they need a shake up. They need something big. And I think DeRozan's got to be a piece that they move.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely something to watch out for. I think the last thing is in a game where they really struggled to get outside shooting. Boy, you really wish you would have had someone like Derek White on the floor playing, because that's where his shooting would have really come in handy. Probably the best shooter alongside Patty Mills on that team, to be fair, from the perimeter. And I thought Patty shot the ball well today. He just didn't take many shots. He only took 6 or 7, but I thought he could have gotten into the double digits for shot attempts, and because it did seem like he was getting decent looks whenever he was on the floor. But yeah, it is a bit unfortunate.
DeJounte Murray, 38 minutes, 17 attempts. That's a lot for him. And
it is a lot.
I think that would have been part of the game plan. He's got to develop that part of his game. If he wants to be, a star guard in the NBA, and we've seen his offense take a small jump this season. I reckon his all-round floor game, we can agree, is really been as solid as a lot of guards in the NBA this season. But it's that scoring, and this will be a really valuable game for him, for DeJounte. For his development in his game, he has to learn how to score better. Would like to see more from Patty for sure, but he'll be able to do the exact same thing next season. He's just that kind of consistent guy.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so the final game today, the one to close things out, the one that took center stage, that we were hoping would be just an absolute thriller of a matchup, and it turned out to be what we were hoping for. I think that the first half, everyone was like, what the hell is going on here? AD and LeBron combining to go 3 of 19, looking, really disoriented. Davis was settling for outside shots a lot. LeBron wasn't really able to be effective when getting to the rim. Schroeder was looking pretty poor, and everyone was just sort of thinking, oh boy. And especially when Steph hit that ridiculous shot to end the half, it feels like
was a gem.
He had to run past almost 3 guys, and then Caruso's the one that's on him at the end and hits a fadeaway 3 there just near the Golden State bench on sort of the free throw line extended spot there on the wing, and he just moneyed it. And that brought so much momentum for the Warriors to end things for that first half. And it was almost the perfect half for Golden State, I think, up 13. A lot of things really went right. But then obviously the second half took place, and the Lakers just decided that they weren't really going to lose that game. We can break it down and go into some adjustments that, the Lakers made. But I think the one that really helped them, go on with the game and not only regain the lead, but close out the game, was probably moving Davis to the 5, right? Benching Drummond. He was just taking up too much space in the middle there. And as soon as Drummond was out of the action, Davis was just able to go to work. He had 13 of his 25 in the fourth. It seemed to really open up the floor for everyone. LeBron seemed to be able to get more in attack mode, get downhill, was able to get an and one on a fast break there, finishing, a reverse layup. So yeah, I thought that adjustment in particular was good. I'd like to bring Wesley Matthews onto the court there in the second half, just for a bit more grit and defensive versatility. Hit a nice 3 as soon as he came on. And then the final thing, which I think really rounded out just a great adjustment game from Vogel, was benching Schroeder in the final minutes. So having a lineup of LeBron, Caruso, KCP, Matthews, and AD really meant that there was no guy that Steph could look to, kind of take advantage of, or even the Warriors role players. It made things difficult, because there was a period there where Steph was starting to find himself, and it was really attacking Schroeder. And, Schroeder's probably, someone you wouldn't really look to put, off the court, because just he gives you a lot in terms of creation from the perimeter outside of LeBron, with the rest of the team being primarily shooters. So yeah, it would have been a ballsy move, but in the end it paid dividends. I think from the Golden State side, Steph had a pretty efficient game. He shot the ball well. I'm sure he would have liked to shoot more than 20. He would have liked to shoot more than 23 times, but it's tough when every time you cross half court, you have two defenders coming at you. That's what the Lakers did often, made him give up the ball, especially at the end there. And, you had a guy like Jordan Poole who's had a great season, but he had two really makeable looks from the corner there. The Lakers bench there was basically standing up, and of course they were making it difficult and screaming at him. But yeah, he didn't just have one look, he had two, and he wasn't able to knock him down. And Warriors just a little bit sloppy for me, I think, is the last thing that stood out. 20 turnovers compared to the Lakers 13. And Draymond and Steph had 12 of those 20. So, you obviously want to limit the amount of times the Lakers have the ball. So I think that's, and what was very close to being, a perfect game for the Warriors. They were able to get the first 24 minutes right, and then only some stretches in the third and fourth. But overall, yeah, it just shows that, why LeBron is so great. Gets poked in the eye, has the end of shot clock and heaves it up and knocks it down. So, I think the Lakers are just proving their championship credentials. And I think for Golden State, you're bitterly disappointed about that. You were probably really hoping you should have won. And I definitely think they were the team that should have won. I think the Lakers stole that. If you rewatch the game again, I think they'd be really disappointed about the outcome. The first question I'd sort of ask you before you can sort of, break it down how you saw it. What did you make of, Steve Kerr not calling a timeout? They sort of took, it was about 10 or 11 seconds left, and they took way too long to bring the ball up the court, and Steph decided then to, throw the ball as two defenders came at him, and then they end up realizing they need to call a timeout with, just over 2 seconds left. Do you think they just should have probably called a timeout from the get-go? Because you want to at least get a look for Steph, surely. And in the end, they just couldn't even get a look for him.
I think on that play that Curry, I guess he didn't actually have the urgency. There was about 10 seconds to go, and for the first couple of seconds, he kind of held it in the backcourt almost. I don't know if he was half assuming that a timeout would be called straight away,
maybe,
or half just trying to catch his breath, because at a lot of times in the fourth quarter, Curry drew the double team, and he obviously was in constant movement the whole game. He always is, and a lot of times he took the ball all the way to the basket after running around the court for 24 seconds. He was tired in the fourth. I still expected him to make the big shot if he was going to have the opportunity to get it off. But that little hesitation that he made, I thought Steve Kerr made the right call. I think at that time, after getting a clutch stop at that period of the game, they could go ahead and play against a not set defense with 10 seconds to go and needing a three. That would be a better opportunity to get a good look at three than whatever they could get out of a timeout, given the Lakers' prowess on defense, especially out of timeout with an opportunity to put their best defensive lineup out there and, kind of work around whatever set play you've got in a limited amount of time. The loose play off of a missed shot, and then you're attacking in transition, I'm a believer of, especially with the talent and the kind of ball movement that Golden State has, that Kerr should have let that happen. And he was kind of inching towards the referee saying, oh, let's see if we can do something here in the first, 5-6 seconds of this final 10, see if we can find a look. If not, I'm going to blow for a timeout. So I think he did it correctly. They still had enough time to get a shot off, 2 seconds,
Yeah.
The pass from Draymond on the inbound just a little bit too fast and went a little bit over Steph's head. And to be honest, he wasn't really particularly open. But, I thought Kerr did the right thing on that decision. And I think if he had his time over again, he would do the same, because there's a better opportunity to get a look against the Lakers in transition than there is, set out of out of timeout pass from the sideline. Overall, with the game, what made this game such a good one, and you touched on a lot of the key elements there. Golden State would be bitterly disappointed because they did play excellent. It felt like they were in control of the game, and they were the better team for a lot of it. On the other hand, LeBron coming off injury, he's only played a couple of games since getting back from this high ankle sprain, which kept him out he's played the least amount of games he's played in his whole career this season. And for him to have another moment, it's just another moment. It's a LeBron game winner, how does he do it? That possession in particular, the ball was going nowhere. And Curry was on him, so he decided to just get a little bit closer to the sideline so that someone could actually find him with a pass. And the strength that he has to just stand there basically and just shoot that, just an eye shot going straight on from that kind of distance, off balance. He knew he had to get it up, so there's no pressure on him, but he knocked it down. It's just another iconic moment for LeBron. And that stole the game for him. You saw the way that Steph reacted when he hit that shot. He's just like, come on, man. That's too good. Like, I can't beat that. You're going to do that to us after we've done such a good job defensively the whole game. And they did, to keep the Lakers to 100 points, with such a mismatch of size. The Warriors were excellent on defense all game long. There's nothing you can say to change my mind about that. In terms of the foul that Draymond made on LeBron, LeBron, he did what he does. He took advantage of the situation, spent an extra long amount of time on the floor, got his rest, potentially made himself a meme on the internet with his kind of reactions of trying to make sure his eye was working properly. And some of his comments after the game saying that he was seeing 3 different hoops at the same time and just wanted to aim for the middle one on that big bomb. He's a character, LeBron, and he loves to write the story. So that part was very, very interesting. But on the flip side, the Warriors, they played great. That's one of the best games they've played all season long. Curry was amazing. He was 52% from the field, 66% from 3 for 6 triples, and he made 7 of 8 at the line. He dropped 7 dimes, grabbed 7 rebounds. He was, the only tiny glitch in this performance was some turnovers, and that's bound to happen when you're getting double teamed as often as he is. He also likes to be loose with the ball, pass the ball with one hand and stuff like that. And the Lakers really took advantage. So in that third quarter, when the game flipped towards the Lakers, the Warriors were still getting into the paint off of the Steph pick and roll. The short roll from Draymond or from Wiggins actually did that great. And we got to mention him because he played a really good game. 10 of 18, really stood up, made some big shots. Only hit 1 3, but he was attacking the basket. To go 10 of 18, with only 1 turnover himself, he was really, really strong for them. Impressive game, great for his confidence and great for their outlook going forward. But in that situation in the third quarter, they threw some crucial turnovers back to back to back. There was a run where they missed a couple outside shots. When they got into the paint, it just speaks to how long the Lakers are and how good they are defensively, and also how lethal they are at turning a steal or a deflection into a guaranteed dunk on the other end. Is how easily, if Golden State had chances to make great passes and good opportunities, a little deflection from Davis, a little, an aggressive deflection from Caruso, those kind of things changed the game for them because the Lakers were able to all of a sudden get out in transition, get some easy buckets for Davis, get some easy buckets for Caruso, who scored for them. Caldwell Pope got a couple of good looks at 3. You mentioned Wesley Matthews when he came on, some good intensity, and then he hit a 3. Plus 17 for Wesley Matthews. That's really ridiculous. They put him on, they became a defensive-minded team, ready to get some deflections. Yeah, Golden State still got some easy ones, but those deflections were able to basically ignite, the Lakers. And that's their MO, defense. And then in the half court on offense, it's LeBron and AD. 28 minutes he was supposed to play, he ends up playing 34. So they went all out to win this, and LeBron got it done for him. It was a momentous battle between both teams. Like, credit to LeBron for pulling it out for his boys, and the Warriors will be disappointed, but I reckon they should take a lot out of it, because not only has this season been a success so far, but Curry's playing as well as he ever has. And to me, it's kind of reaffirming that the Warriors, the dynasty might not be over. If they can get Clay back, this team is actually going to be scary. If they can pick up another piece somehow going forward, they could still have a rivalry with this Lakers group and all the teams that are contending for the championship. The Warriors are still going to be relevant for years to come.
Yeah, I mean, they had a pretty solid 8-man rotation today. I thought Toscano Anderson played some decent minutes. Mulder was good. Mulder was okay. He didn't need to do anything too amazing, but the fact that he didn't stand out as being a passenger was really good. Even though he played at least 20 minutes, so that's always a good thing from him. Poole was okay. Wished he would have obviously, taken up the moment at the end, but it's
if he had to, then you would have said that his overall game was really good.
Yeah, absolutely. That is fair. Yeah. So minus those last couple of shots, I think he obviously had a really good game as well. So Looney played well. I thought he was pretty active, did well rebounding and battling with Drummond in that first half in particular when Drummond played a lot of his minutes.
Drummond.
Yeah, he did. It's about as much as you can ask really from those 8 guys. So they'd feel pretty hard done by, that's for sure. The last guy I'll probably mention from the Lakers that you touched on, Caruso. When no one was making shots in the first half, he was. I think he had about 12 points in the first half, and LeBron actually mentioned him in the press conference and just talked about how important Alex was in 2 aspects: the scoring in the first half and then the playmaking in the second half. There was one time where the ball was swung, came to Caruso, he drove straight away and just drew Draymond in, just dumped the ball off to Davis for a nice easy dunk, reward your big man, get him going, make sure he feels involved. I thought Caruso, it's obviously hard to slow down Curry at any stage of the game, but he's a guy that's always going to compete. He understands the game very well. I think he's such a valuable player. It's amazing how he's gone from a meme a couple of years ago to looking like a science teacher to now being a legitimate player. Like, he will dominate you. Yeah. He's so smart.
Him and KCP, what you saw in this game is the roles and the kind of importance that they played in the finals against Miami.
Yeah.
They were both huge. When you leave KCP open for threes, he can knock them down, and he does a job defensively all game. Caruso, that energy that he brings. I thought Kuzma also brought some really good energy off the bench as well.
Yep.
He was ready to go off the James and Davis pick and roll. If they kicked it to Caruso or Kuzma, they were head down on the rim within one dribble, suck the defense in, make the next play or finish at the rim. So they kept it very simple, but did it with great energy. I thought, they could add, maybe not the right matchup for Harrell, but that's a kind of similar thing that he can do as well, bring that energy. So on the Lakers' perspective, they definitely didn't play their best game. LeBron's obviously, they want to keep his minutes down, but if he can play, and Davis, if he can turn around his play a little bit, this team is built. Their bench and their supporting cast is built to go deep in the playoffs and win a championship. They pulled this one out of their ass, but it just means they've got a little bit more momentum that makes them even scarier going into that first round matchup against Phoenix.
Yeah. Great point to finish on. I thought they turned over the ball as well quite often when they were doing this pick and roll with Anthony Davis. They kept throwing bounce passes in the first half and a little bit in the second half that just always seemed like it was getting deflected, or Golden State were just stealing right away. And it's like, is this the first time they're running a pick and roll with, Davis? Like, they got to understand the guy. I thought they was just very lazy.
Bazemore and Draymond, are really good defenders. 5 steals for Bazemore in this one. And Draymond's almost definitely going to be all defensive first team. The Warriors, they're a top 5, top 6 defense in the NBA as well. For everything that we saw offensively from these two teams, they're both top 5, top 6 defensively. And, that's why, I spoke earlier about that period where the Lakers were able to step it up on the defensive end and opened up their offense. That's obviously the key for both these teams. But, there's periods in the game where you're not going to be able to stop guys. But can you find that momentum in the game? Can your defense keep you in the game at the right amount of time to pull off a win? And that's what happened for the Lakers in this one.
Yeah. Okay, so that leads us into the remaining 2 games of the play-in. So kicking things off tomorrow, the first game is Indy at Washington. So where do you sit with this game, Das? Because you've had a good start to your predictions, 3 out of 4. If not for Washington letting you down, you were looking at a clean sweep. So where do you sit on with this Indy Wizards matchup?
I think the script flips. I think Washington get this win. I think the momentum's obviously going towards Indiana, and they played great in that last one. But Westbrook, I don't expect 2 games in a row that are down from him. Hopefully, Beal, even if he's not 100%, he's going to leave it all on the line, because it's go home if they don't win this. He's going to have a big one. They're at home, so that's why I picked them. They're at home. I expect a big performance from their big 2 players. I think they'll win. Indiana, there's a path for them to win. They shoot the ball really, really well. they find some more scoring. Maybe Brogdon can pull another performance out despite being out for almost a month now. But I just don't see it. I see Washington finding a way to win this. Could be very close because Washington might fumble the bag on their way to this win. They might really struggle to put out a good performance. But I reckon Washington, too tough. They'll get the win.
Yeah, I do kind of agree with you on that sentiment. I do think it's going to be a lot closer than potentially the last game that the Pacers obviously played in. But I think the key thing here is what you're saying, that the Wizards will just be able to get a lot of easy baskets because the Pacers play into, Washington's hands with their style of play. The Pacers get out and run. They're not really too much of a half-court team. They're looking to, play at a really up pace, fast tempo. I know Brogdon looked great in his first hit out. I'd be surprised if he played as well in this next game. Surely some rust has to come back into it. It's just too long out. He missed at least
2 weeks
and on the road. I think Sabonis is obviously going to get his numbers. He'll eat up the rebounds. But yeah, it's hard for me to go past Westbrook in this one as well. I'll tell you what, I have changed my mind on a few of these Pacers role players, like this Kellen Martin guy off the bench. Like, gosh, I like him.
You like him?
He seems to be someone that just doesn't overplay his hand. Just plays within his role, gets open looks, knocks him down. Seems to be cutting nice at the rim. And he probably wouldn't get much opportunity if a guy like Jeremy Lamb was healthy. So it's good to see Kellen Martin get some minutes and, be a bit of a contributor. You do love TJ. You like both the Holidays, Mick Buckets, Brissett, all those guys.
Can they get it done on the road? It's another question. When all their stars are playing great, they come on and shoot away. And that's what they did in the game against Charlotte. Yeah. Different proposition going on the road against a team with a couple of all-star players.
That's true. I think I would probably be happy to lean Indy if LeVert was healthy, but it's a shame that he's now out with COVID protocols at probably the worst potential time. And if Beal was healthy, it would be a different game as well. But yeah, you just think even if Beal's limping, Westbrook's going to probably carry Beal and the other 4 guys and the other 3 guys to the finish line.
Who do you want in a matchup against Philly? You'd rather Indiana get through and then spank them, you reckon? Are you happy with Washington?
Yeah, I think Washington. I actually wouldn't mind Washington. Just the fact that Beal normally kills us, and he's probably going to be hampered.
Rather than the easy one.
Indy always play us really well. There's something about Indiana. When we were still competing for the 1 seed earlier in the week or later last week, Indy were able to beat us in the end by, I think it was 8 or 9 points. So for some reason, Indy seemed to always find a way of making it a real game. I mean, if you remember in the bubble, looking back that far, TJ Warren dropped 50 on Simmons. Like, come on. Like, I know he was on a different planet, but yeah, it's something about the Pacers that for whatever reason, they always give the Sixers a hard game. Whereas no matter how well the Wizards play, especially the last couple of seasons against Philly, we always find a way to win a game. Like, we were able to beat the Wizards earlier in this season and Beal had 50 something. So, Beal does normally kill us, but I think we always find a way. And it's always nice when you have a clear advantage. Obviously, with the Pacers, they would have a Sabonis to at least throw back at us as someone. But who can what the Wizards throw back at us when we have Embiid? So that's where I seem to lie on as well. If Beal's already,
he'll be too strong.
Yeah, if Beal's already not, if Beal's already probably struggling with injury, how about we chuck Ben Simmons on you with your injury as well? See how you like trying to get points. So. I know a lot of people similar to you would probably lean Indy, but I think the Wizards is something we can probably deal with and be able to get through a bit more comfortable. That's where I'd settle.
Right.
Okay, Memphis Warriors close it out. How do you feel about this
rematch
game?
Well, it's the only one that that's so recent. These guys played each other
exactly
3 or 4 days ago, so I think that's an advantage for Memphis. And obviously, given the great way that the Warriors played in the last game, it's only natural that they're almost going to come down to the level of Memphis in this game. This will be a grit and grind game, 100%. This will, unless the Warriors are able to bounce back in a way that they blow them off the court, I think that's unlikely. I think it's more likely that, the Warriors kind of have a bit of an emotional kind of step down for the beginning of this game. And I think Memphis will be right in it. And it's going to come down to, can Memphis score enough? The Warriors, they'll tighten up on defense in the second half. It'll be stripped down to the bone, Memphis. It'll be, this is all we've got left. Who can we rely on? Who's going to score the ball for us? So need a huge game out of some of their guys like Jackson Jr., see if he can do anything. Can they rely on Bain for more minutes? Will they get anything out of their bench? Brandon Clark. They know probably what they're going to get out of Valanciunas. He dominated the Warriors only 5 days ago. Hopefully Brooks won't foul out, but he'll, be able to score the ball as well and do a lot for them, play another 39 minutes, hopefully. But it's going to come down to Morant. I think if he can have a big game, if he can shoot the ball, if he can kind of win the matchup against whoever's guarding him, then Memphis can make an upset. But I'm expecting the Warriors to be a little bit down after such a big game. That's why I think it'll be close. I think the Warriors are the better team. I will tip the Warriors to win it, but it's definitely a big danger game because of just the logistics of, Memphis losing to them and now coming off a momentous win, and the Lakers taking it off the Warriors in such a dramatic fashion. All the energy is coming towards Memphis. So the Warriors will win, but this will be real close.
Yeah, the one key you've touched on a lot there that's relevant. The one key that I heavily agree with is the Morant thing. I think Golden State knew how to sort of slow him down and stop him. They were happy to switch, or even wasn't even a switch. Sometimes Draymond would find himself on Morant and it would just be no issue at all. He's just such a high IQ defender, Draymond, that he knows how to make the most and really bait guys into being in uncomfortable positions when, normally they can get wherever they want, scoring the ball. So I think they know how to stop Morant, that it is probably going to come down to, a few of these other guys, like can Kyle Anderson give you a little bit more? Can Brooks obviously continue to give a lot offensively, given how much he has to exert defensively with sticking with Steph in the half court and running around with him? Will Brooks foul out? That's the issue. He had 5 fouls again today against DeRozan. So that there is some sort of issue there where he does play physical defense and sometimes he can cross the line and give away some cheap fouls. So I think Wiggins continues to be aggressive. I just find it very hard to see how Golden State don't find a way to win, especially the fact they're at home. So they're 25-11, which is tied for, sixth best in the league for home court. I think that's a huge swing, a massive advantage that they have on their side. It could potentially be a different thing if they were in Memphis, but I think the fact that they're in San Fran for this one, it really helps push things over the edge. And I think they can. I know they'll be disappointed after today's result, Golden State, but I think they can push back and replicate it again. How do you bet against Steph? Similar to how do you bet against Westbrook? How do you bet against Steph?
They'll probably think that they're a legit after such a good showing against the Lakers. I probably think there might be a legit shot to cause some trouble to Utah in the first round. So they want to get in there for sure. And Steph doesn't want this train to stop. More games for all these role players as well going forward. A playoff series would be a great experience for them. They've still got everything to play for, the Warriors.
Yeah, absolutely. I lean towards that as well. They have played Utah pretty tough. I know Utah obviously hadn't had Donovan Mitchell for the back end of the regular season. Same with Conley.
And Conley, yeah.
But geez, I don't know. I think the Warriors take inspiration from it, like you said, and they go on to potentially, if they don't win the series, it wouldn't surprise me at all if they can push Utah to 7. So that won't be necessarily an easy beat. But yeah, they'll obviously be relying on some key role players. Just quick question on Golden State. Oubre's not back, is he? He can't come back for playoffs?
I think he might be able to come back.
I knew he was out to finish the regular season, but I just don't know his playoff situation.
They've settled so nicely on their rotation. I wouldn't do it even if he was, They're 7 or 8 deep and they're really thriving on knowing what the rotation is, I think. So I wouldn't be bringing him in at this stage. He's just too much of a hothead, too unpredictable, I suppose.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so settled on so Darcy's gone the Wizards and Golden State. And you know what? Just to not be boring, I'm going to swap. I'll go from Washington. I'll say Indy. I'll say Indy continue their flow. It potentially just unfortunate timing for the Wizards with some injuries, and maybe Westbrook. I don't know. This could be famous last words and make me look like an idiot if I'm not already. But maybe Westbrook's exhausted from breaking the triple-double record and having to really do everything for this Wizards team, that it potentially just comes back to bite them and they don't have much gas left in the tank. Things, for whatever reason, maybe now the Pacers and their head coach are best friends. Maybe they needed that, come to blows, little riff between, how long ago was it now? 2-3 weeks ago. And since then that they turned it on. And so it seems like they could really have this underdog sort of tag and be able to roll with it. I know so far the key theme has been in these playing games that the favorite has been able to just take care of business. But potentially there's a bit of momentum here with Indy. They can really look to further inflict pain on this Wizards play-in experience by being able to upset them on their home court. I mean, they can definitely stick with them in terms of pace. It's just, can their shooters do enough? Can they get continued strong play out of their role players? Can Dougie McBuckets hit another 4 or 5 threes? Can Brissett continue to play well? Can he outplay Hachimura? I think there's potential he could. I think if Beal was healthy, I would be very hesitant to make this pick. But the fact that Beal isn't healthy, I think I'm happy to make this backflip, Das, and to take Indy.
Yeah, I take the best players, and I think they've got the 2 best.
That's fair.
So,
yeah. Well, you're the one that's 3 and 4 so far. So if anyone's looking to back someone's picks, roll with Das, because I stupidly took the Hornets. So now I think I split it. I'm 2 and 4. So just to go over that, I'm Indy and Warriors. Darcy is Washington and Warriors.
Well, in our next pod, we'll be telling you guys all about our predictions for the playoffs, and I'm going to be releasing my yearly bracket game. So come out and think if you can pick all the matchups, who's going to win, and what the scores will be out of 7. We'd love to hear from you guys. So keep an eye out for that, because I think we can just turn our predictions around. I think we're due for a big playoffs worth of selections, when throughout the season we've been trying to bet everything, and now we're into the playoffs. Surely that's going to give us those ups and those downs. Are going to give us the knowledge we need to pick a winning bracket.
Yep, absolutely. Less volatility in the postseason. Guys are trying hard every night. We know what we're going to get. That'll result in some really solid locks, I think, from Das and I. So we hope you enjoyed listening to this podcast. Bit of a wrap up of the play-in so far, and then the preview of the final 2 games, one tomorrow, one on Saturday. And we will be back to do another pod as well before the playoffs kick off on Sunday, Australian time. So thanks very much for tuning in, guys. And we'll be back to speak to you guys very shortly.
Peace out.
See ya.